Hi, this is Sarah coming to you one last time from the Holy Family Warming Shelter for Reverend on the Roof. We have our City Council President, Tiffany Brault, with us right now, and she's going to share some information about the experience of those who are unhoused in our community and what the City of Fond du Lac is doing to help them. Tiffany, thank you for being here.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
So what has been your experience working with those who are unhoused in our community?
So I'll say like my direct experience is probably more like most of our community residents, that I don't work in a field where like I'm directly working with those who are unhoused every day, but more like a support person where, if there's fundraisers or donation drives, like I want to get involved. And that's something I really love about our community is that Fond du Lac is very generous, that like when there's a need, people are ready to give. We might not have a lot, but we want to give what we can because we recognize that there's people in need. And so in that respect, then also in my work in city council, and I also serve on the county board, making sure that we are taking care of all of our residents in whatever ways that we can, and making sure that we have a lot of awareness that we do have people who are living in our community that do not have a roof over their heads, and trying to find solutions and ways to deal with the problem of homelessness.
Mm-hmm. How have you tried to advocate for them in our community? I know you just said you tried to be part of the outreach efforts and the drives and everything. Can you talk more about that?
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing I've done as city council president is just making sure that we keep awareness on the issue. We might not talk about the issue of homelessness at every single city council meeting because if you talk about the same issue all the time and you don't have solutions, it's not really productive. But just making sure that that issue is always kind of at the top of our mind, that we're getting updates, that we're learning statistics. The entire city council went to visit the AdvoCap Opportunity Center as an example of a way that we wanted to connect directly with the people who are doing the work, but also our residents who are experiencing homelessness, and hearing their stories and learning from them about what they've experienced, I think has been really valuable. Mm-hmm. We might not have all the solutions. We definitely don't have all the solutions yet. But that we're always making sure that it's an issue that we're thinking about, that we're making sure that that part of our community is not ignored.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, always doing what we can to keep it up front. Mm-hmm. What do you view as the role of city government in helping those in need, particularly those who are experiencing homelessness?
So I thought about this question, and if you'd asked me this 5 years ago when I first got involved in local government, I would have said, well, we have to solve homelessness, right? That should be our role and our goal. And I still think, that should always be a goal, right? That we don't want to see anybody who's living without a home. But unfortunately, 5 years of working in local government, there is some reality that we can't do everything. When I talked about being a support person in my personal life, unfortunately that's kind of what the role of, I think, city government ends up being, is that we don't really have enough funding available when we collect everybody's taxes and everything. We've got, the roads have to be clean, we have to have clean drinking water, we need public safety. There's not really a lot of extra funds to say start a new homeless shelter or create new programming. We have to rely on our nonprofit partners in a lot of ways because we just don't have enough resources, and we have to be honest about that. But I think, like I said, we always have to make sure that we're not ignoring the issue and being open to solutions. So if somebody comes to us with an idea and they said, hey, if we can work together, we can do this, that's why we should always make sure that we are considering homelessness as an important issue, because then we're open to having those discussions and trying to make something a reality.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, it takes a village to address. It can't be just one, can't be the government, it can't be one thing. We all have to work together to be able to do that. What importance is there in offering a place like the Holy Family Warming Shelter to those experiencing homelessness?
So honestly, I don't know what we would do without the Holy Family Warming Shelter. A couple of years ago, we had some community conversations because the former agency that was running a warming shelter, they could no longer do it. And there were people that were kind of panicking, what is our community going to do? Because we knew that there's people that have this need. And when we get to our coldest winter months, if we leave people to just fend for themselves outside, that's not necessarily survivable. So we're just, I know I'm so thankful for Holy Family. I think the whole community is, that Holy Family was able to rally and make this happen, purchase this building that is now renovated and a welcoming space for the people who need it most. Because people also need to know that their community wants them to have a space that they can go to if they need to.
Mm-hmm. I know from our side of it, we're just so blessed to live in a community that has come out and supported it so much. We definitely would not have been able to do it without everyone's help, including the cities and just all the organizations and individuals who donate.
Mm-hmm.
As it is National Hunger and Homelessness Awareness Week, what is something that you would like the public to know about homelessness that they may not be aware of?
So I think I have two things. So I talked about kind of the limitations of city government, and one of the things I've also learned in doing this work is that the state of Wisconsin doesn't really designate a lot of funding towards addressing homelessness. And a lot of, basically the majority of the funding goes to Milwaukee and Madison, and I think Racine and Kenosha, because those are our biggest communities, so they have the largest population of people who are unhoused, and you want to put your finances where they're going to do the most good. But that means a community the size of Fond du Lac doesn't really get a lot of support from the state. Even like Oshkosh or Appleton, they don't really see a lot of support because we don't put a lot of our state dollars towards that. So one thing I would advocate for people to do is talk to our state legislators and ask them, could we put more funding towards people who are most in need, are most vulnerable, to try to build up more support for them, especially across the state where we're starting to see more need. And then the other thing, I think a lot of people are aware of this and know this, but just the fact that homelessness isn't a moral failing of somebody. It's not really necessarily somebody's fault that they're homeless, that often there are those situations that put a person in just a really terrible situation. I've talked with a woman who, she worked her entire life, she built up a business, and then she was a senior citizen, and we know that our seniors are often more susceptible to scams. And so she lost basically all of her money to a scam. She believed it. She thought, she needed to put her money where this person was telling her, and then suddenly she's out of resources, and she found herself living out of her van because she didn't have anything. And there's people who have had major illnesses where suddenly you can't work because you have cancer and you need to get treatment, but you can't, you don't have the energy to go to your job anymore, and then you lose your job, and then you lose your home. And so I think we need to always remember that there are situations that come up all the time that it's not really somebody's fault, and we shouldn't try to just see it as a problem that's not really ours to solve, right? That like we're all in this, it could be any of us. And so we still have more work to do.
Mm-hmm. I think it was Amber from the United Way who she said we're all 2 or 3 events from homelessness, and yeah, we never know when it's going to be us, but also just because it could be any of us, we should try to meet people and try to help them. And like you said, it's not a moral failing. Is there anything else you would like the community to know, or anything else you'd like to add?
I don't think so, but I appreciate Holy Family for being here and having this space. I'm really grateful that the community stepped up and donated to this cause, and hopefully we can continue to work together to do more to help our community.
Well, thank you for all that you do and for your support of the organizations and your work on the City Council and County Board. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.